What is up, football fans? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into another live edition of XFL Chalk Talk. We are here to preview or to recap week number 3 of the XFL and 8 things that we learned. If you follow the show, you will know that going into week number 3, we all gave our show's picks, and we were pretty unison. In fact, we were all unison. We were all very similar. So we all picked every team, every game the same. And everything was going just swimmingly. It was going great. We were cruising along, and then Sunday night happened.
That's right.
And
what a
chaos erupted.
What a disaster.
An absolute bloodbath. But, at least we all lost together. And I think if we're going to start talking about what happened this past weekend, we have to start with the Sunday night game, because that, I think, there may have been people out there that picked the Wildcats, probably mostly Wildcat fans, but I don't think even Wildcat fans saw what was coming. Yeah. That was crazy. So number one on our 8 things that we learned throughout week 3 of the XFL season, the Wildcats rally, and they're back in the championship hunt, guys.
That's right.
This team, what did you see from the Wildcats?
Yeah, so, the first thing I'll say is the offense was extremely efficient, right? And we talk about it on the show all the time, and we talk about it with another West team. But when they got in the red zone and when it came to big plays, they were able to score touchdowns. And that's exactly what they did. Josh Johnson, a very efficient 18 for 25, 72% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns. The running game, they really didn't need a lot of the running game because they were so good in the passing game and they had a lot of short fields. And guys, Trey McBride, where the heck did this guy come from? Right? He had 5 receptions. Yeah, right.
He came from DC, right?
That's right. 5 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then, of course, you had Montez Carter, who had 3 total touchdowns, 2 running, 2 running, 1 receiving. And really, guys, the key of the game, and there's really 2 things. One, inside of short fields is what the LA Wildcats were given, and when they were given that, they were able to score touchdowns. And second, guys, my hat's off to Winston Moss, because I had my doubts. I had my doubts that he'd be able to get this team ready to go, not only on offense, but on defense, and then just as a team, right, being able to get them motivated. I was blown away at how dominant they were on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and they were dominant in all 3 areas. Special teams, they blocked a punt. Defense, they had multiple turnovers, obviously, on defense. And then offensively, they just clicked. Josh Johnson looked healthy. He looked like he actually had a week of practice to get ready for this week. He had a ton of reps. He looked fantastic. He looked like the best quarterback in the league, or one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So and Gliss, I had my doubts too about if Winston Moss could rally the troops. But I remember us saying one thing. There's 2 things that happen when you have this kind of like dysfunction or chaos early in the season, and you have a lot of changes like Winston made. Either the team rallies around you because they love and respect you and they get stronger for it, or it falls apart. And I think we saw with a lot of the post-game comments in the locker room, a lot of them mocking the rents due stuff from the landlord. They said there's a new landlord in town, mocking Anthony Johnson. It's very clear that the players rallied around Winston. He didn't lose the locker room, that they hung tight with him. And that's a big, big step forward for this team.
It's crazy, isn't it? Everybody going into this game was talking about how this was the revenge game for Rashad Ross and Anthony Johnson. It turned out to be the revenge game for Trey McBride, who barely even played going into this game. And then he comes out and scores 2 touchdowns. They do suffer a huge blow. They lost Nelson Spruce. Not sure if you guys saw that. He's going to be out at least for this week, and we don't know. It could be even more, which really sucks because you come off of this fantastic win, and then you lose your number 1 go-to receiver, and we don't know how long it's going to be for, so we'll see there. But not to take away from what they did this past weekend, because it was impressive. And like you said, I believe it was you, Kenny, all three phases. It's basically they did what the defenders have done for the first 2 weeks.
Right.
It's like Space Jam or something. They stole their talent and it became them. They
a
like
great
stole their
analogy.
they stole their mojo because the
Great
special teams, they
analogy.
blocked a punt. Up until this past week, the DC Defender special teams is what really was helping them separate themselves, get them in great field position, even score on special teams. And the LA Wildcats pulled it on them. The defense for the Wildcats was absolutely dominant, which I think brings me to our second point here. And, if we're going to talk about how good LA was, what the hell happened to the DC Defenders? Number 2 is the DC disaster. Kenny, I'll let you go ahead because I know you're just foaming at the mouth to talk about this.
Oh, he is.
What happened to DC, especially on the offensive side of the ball?
Look, I've been taught growing up that a lot of times you take the high road in situations as this. You don't kick teams when they're down. You don't kick players when you're down. But I'm going to amend that rule just because I got so much heat for the first 2 weeks about, Cardell Jones is an MVP candidate. Kenny, are you going to change your stance? Blah, 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 blah. Guess what? He threw 4 interceptions on Sunday and looked terrible. He looked like the Cardell we all know and love who can't throw on the run.
Oh, come on, Kenny.
Here we go.
Just, you know what? I'm gonna take a little bit of a victory lap on this one because of all the heat I took on Discord and on YouTube Live the last 2 weeks. But no, I kind of jest a little bit. I am being funny, but I don't know what happened. This is not the team we saw the first 2 weeks of the season. I mean, it was just an absolute embarrassment. And sometimes playing on the road and traveling can be tough. That's not an excuse because every team and every professional sport has to do it. So it's not like these guys have never done it before. But they got stopped for the entire game. Like it was from the first snap to pretty much the last play of the game that they were overmatched. And I don't know if it's because they got down so quickly. It was 27-0 halfway through the second quarter, and it just was one of those things where they got flattened early and couldn't recover. But it just did not look like the team we saw weeks 1 and 2, which begs the question: was DC that team the real deal, or was it a little bit of a mirage because New York and Seattle haven't really played that well since? Were they that good because they played in maybe inferior competition? I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think maybe they looked a little bit better than what we saw on Sunday because they played inferior teams. But I don't think they're as bad as they played on Sunday either. I think it was just one of those games where it kind of snowballs. One bad thing happens after another, and then you're in a tailspin. As Shane Falco says, Gless, you're in quicksand.
That's right. To me, 2 things really stuck out. One, how physical LA was, but it just seemed like DC was just kind of taking punch after punch, both up front, and then just ultimately, as the game seemed to snowball, just seemed like not a lot of confidence out there. I don't know about you, but I felt like the first 2 weeks there were a lot of DC receivers wide open. I didn't see any this week. I felt like LA was sitting there dropping 7, potentially sometimes even 8, and there was really nowhere to throw the ball, and Cardell was just forcing it and end up just getting snake bit 4 different times. And then, what the most backbreaking things is, guys, especially when you're playing, and you guys played, so you know this, when special teams has a botch and they take it down to the 1, like that's just backbreaking, right? Because you're like, all right, we're struck. It's demoralizing, and you're like, you know what, we're not there on offense, but if we punt him deep and we can hold him to a 3 and out, maybe we can get something going on offense. And nothing. When you needed your special teams to kind of come in the most, they actually failed you. So they got dominated, and I didn't see that the first 2 weeks. And I didn't think I was going to see it, especially on defense. I know that they were given short fields, but, it's all about picking your guys up. Yeah, Cardell really struggled. And is it a mirage for him? I don't really know. It's way too early to tell. Yeah. But the defenders on defense have to be able to pick their boys up, right? That's team football there. So little disappointed that they didn't have a better showing on defense, even though they gave up short fields.
Yeah, I don't know how you pick your boys up after a 4 interception game and a block punt. I mean, at some point it's just too much.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about during the game. I mean, we blink our eyes and it was 14-0.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you know what I mean?
We blink our eyes. We blink our eyes. It was 27. I mean, it was 27-0 with 10 minutes left to go in the second.
Yeah, I mean, it was over early.
Yeah,
it was over early.
You said a couple of things that are interesting to me. So first is you were talking about boxing. It was basically, and like how LA got out to such a quick start, it was like the defenders got hit with a haymaker, right off the bat, round one, and they just were out of it. They couldn't recover. I think they were just dazed and confused. They were stunned, had no clue what was going on because they did not expect what to happen. And then you talk about, and it was interesting because I haven't thought about this till now. Maybe the LA strategy, which I think clearly worked, was, all right, Cardale Jones is the hardest quarterback in the league by far to sack. I mean, we just saw him shrugging off defenders in the pocket weeks 1 and 2 like it was nothing. He was getting outside the pocket. He was making plays to wide open receivers. Let's drop back into coverage. Let's make Cardale Jones beat us throwing the football. Let's clog up those passing lanes. Let's drop into zone. Let's get him confused. I was baffled. I've never seen such a disconnect between a quarterback and his receivers. Like, it wasn't even like when Cardale was throwing the ball, he was throwing it into, double coverage and whatnot. He was throwing it not even close to his receivers. Like, at least 2 of those 4 picks, there wasn't a receiver even in the vicinity. No. Like within 5 to 6 yards.
It was almost like what LA was showing them on defense was something that they hadn't seen on film, nor did they prepare for. I mean, it was odd. It was just odd to watch. It was just he's sitting back there holding it like, oh man, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. There's no one open. There's more black shirts than there are white shirts. I don't know what.
That's what it seemed like, didn't it?
And it was just disconnect. The timing was off. I mean, a couple of those interceptions, the timing was just off. Especially that last one, you could see the receivers broke and Cardale didn't throw it on time. And it just, it went right into an LA Wildcats.
One of the things I love about the XFL is the communication. You hear all of the mics and everything, and then you heard on that one interception, Pep Hamilton, like basically when the play was developing, throw it away, no! Threw it right into like triple coverage. Right. Just another reason the XFL is so great.
I think the game is a perfect example of what Mike Tyson said. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
That's right.
And they got punched. They got
the
punched
wise
in the mouth,
Mike Tyson.
They got
my
DC
back
got punched
is
in the
broken.
Mouth. Oh, it's
spinal.
It's spinal. But I mean, look, at the end, this happens. This is going to happen probably to every team. Most likely, maybe not, maybe except 1 or 2 teams in the league. They're going to get blown out. They're going to get rocked one week, and they're going to have a ton of question marks. It happens. It happens throughout the course of a season.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move to number 3, a team that's. So in the beginning, if you follow the show and watch our power rankings segments every week, you'll know that this team was in the lower half of our power rankings going into the season. And we even said in that episode, if their quarterback, who's a rookie, can perform at a high level and get the ball to his playmakers, because we like the skill position players around him, if he can perform at a high level and keep his composure, this is a team that has the potential to skyrocket up the power rankings. And we just recorded our power rankings before we went live here. And let me tell you, they're already there. Like, it took them no time at all.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Battlehawks are impressing me more and more every week. And I think when you talk about the St. Louis Battlehawks, you got to talk about Jordan Ta'amu. And we always loved the upside of Ta'amu. When we did our quarterback rankings back in, October, guys, like right after the allocations, he was our second quarterback just because of the talent and the upside. But we were just concerned that, he's young. He doesn't have the reps. But he has shown so much leadership and composure and command of the offense through the first 3 weeks. And he's being complemented by a running game where it doesn't put all of the pressure on him. I mean, Matt Jones, Christy Michael, they're, controlling the clock, moving the ball. So then it allows Ta'amu to make plays with his legs and his arm. The Battlehawks have just been extremely impressive, and it's getting more and more impressive as the weeks go on.
Yeah, he's got full control of this offense, and obviously Chuck Long believes in him. He's pretty much opened it up for him, and it's very, very impressive for someone who's had 3 professional starts at this point. I mean, if you look at his completion percentages, his lowest completion percentage was this week at 67%. I think the sky's the limit. They've obviously got the best home field advantage in the league. The Dome was absolutely rocking. The defense played lights out. Kenny Robinson's a stud and is looking like a wise move of going to the XFL versus staying in college. So they're firing on all cylinders. The only team, in my opinion, that's been more impressive than them is Houston. Who?
Yep. I would say a couple things about the Battlehawks. One, special teams is absolutely outstanding on Saturday. They blocked a punt, and they also returned a kickoff for a touchdown. So that just those two plays right there, we just talked about it before with the DC Defenders. It's absolutely demoralizing to the other team. And the kickoff return happened in the first half. I think the punt block happened in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but it wasn't late. Like, it was something to where it really kept the momentum on the Battlehawks side. So I think that's one thing to notice. And, we talked a lot about the Battlehawks defense last week, and they were outstanding. But guys, the leading rusher in the XFL is Matt Jones. Matt Jones, 52 attempts, 224 yards, 1 touchdown, an average of 4.3 yards per carry. But what I really like about the Battlehawks, and we can talk about Te'amu, and there's no doubt he's had a significant impact. But the balance on what they're doing on offense, it's like watching a college football offense. You're seeing a lot of shotgun runs. You're seeing a lot of counters. You're seeing RPOs. You're seeing a lot of misdirections. But you're seeing a lot of different run looks, and it's extremely difficult for defenses play after play to see these different run looks. And, we saw the replay at the beginning. Matt Jones was really able to take that first drive, and he had the big play. But I'll look back at it, but I believe that they scored in 5 plays, and they ran on all 5 plays. Right. I mean, just completely shell-shocked the Guardians on how effective they weren't in the run game. So I tell you what, if you can stop St. Louis in the run game, I think you got a chance. If not, man, I tell you what, they're going to be really tough to beat. I mean, they're really good in the run game.
Look at Kenny Robinson, and I think he's worth talking about. He had the interception last game, but, he's being looked at in the NFL draft, and he's somewhat of a pioneer, if you will, going with the XFL. I know he had, problems being eligible at West Virginia, but he decided instead of trying to transfer and go somewhere else, he's like, I'll give XFL a shot. So he's making money and he's getting game film and he's succeeding. So if he continues to showcase his talents like he is right now, what does that mean for the league bringing in college players? Because right now you're seeing Kenny Robinson on ABC, Fox, ESPN making plays. I think a lot of college athletes will be like, man, why don't I do that, make money, get some game film, and then I'll jump to the NFL? Yeah,
and anybody in the transfer portal or with academic issues, should be a no-brainer. If they're having trouble transferring somewhere, or they're having academic issues, and they know they're not going to be able to maybe be academically eligible the next semester, I think it's a no-brainer to go. And you're going to see the floodgates open up. As long as Kenny Robinson continues to be successful, we're going to see that more and more and more.
Yeah, I think if the league is successful, I think that's when you'll see more of these guys coming in, and maybe guys dropping out of the transfer portal knowing that they can make some cash and really make a name for themselves instead of potentially jumping from school to school to school with hopes of playing, right? If you're talented, there's a place for you in the XFL. So I think if the XFL can continue building on all of this momentum, still getting eyeballs in the TV, I absolutely think you're going to see more cases like this. And he's the perfect example of a guy that's perfect for this league because he can go out. He does, he may not totally fit in just kind of the college environment, but he can go out and make some cash and also make some plays. And potentially this is his way to get to the league.
So let's go from the good to the bad. And I think we know where we're going with this. And the bad is really bad at this point. Like brink of disaster bad.
Woof.
The New York Guardians, a team that started so hot after week 1, has just completely unraveled. 2 just miserable performances in a row. I think we all kind of expected this, honestly, going into this game for St. Louis. I don't think any of us picked this game to even be, remotely close, but it's just another very concerning sign. And to me, guys, it's not only that they're being outplayed on the field, it's the lack of discipline that this team is showing.
I mean, it's bad.
Week 2, you saw with McGloin throwing his temper tantrums. Then you had the center, Silberman, having to be taken out of the game because he's fighting with people, and it just, it's a complete mess. And then you have the Mikes catching Gilbride, going to McKay's like, McKay on the sideline, I need you to step up because some of the guys who are supposed to be leaders aren't being leaders. Like, wow, We're 3 weeks in, and it's like unraveling before our eyes already.
And then not only that, Mikhail McKay almost started a brawl after Kenny Robinson intercepted that pass. Like they literally almost got into a big fight. Whoever engaged with McKay to block him on the return, they got into a huge sideline scuffle. So it's not a great look for New York right now. 2 weeks in a row they've had dysfunction on the sideline, and then you've got is Gilbride gonna end up cutting ties with Mangus and take over play calling because that's
going to happen at some point, doesn't it?
It's got to, because everybody's ripping G.A. Mangus and his ability to call the offense. The quarterback,
even his own quarterback.
Yeah, McGloin's openly spoke out about it. I mean, and look, and at the end of the day, you can fire him, but that better be the right move, because if it's, you can only blame him for so much. And I think it's a little deeper than just his play calling. I don't think it's helping matters, but offensively, they've just looked lost. It's very, very concerning moving forward, because that defense, I think, is decent, but they can't be decent when they're on the field 3/4 of the game.
Yeah, I think the passing game has been a disaster. Week 1 it looked okay. You had a couple of big plays down the field. The running game's been any
better, Glass?
No.
This last game was a lot better than it's been a week in 2 weeks.
There you go, Guardians fans. There's your positive takeaway.
It is, man. Cook and Victor both averaged. Okay. Well, no, they did. Cook 9 attempts, 50 yards, 5.6 yards average. You had Victor 10 attempts for 50 yards, so a 5-yard average. So it actually looked a little bit better, but that just could have been because they got behind, and the Battlehawks are dropping 7 and 8 guys, so they had numbers in the box. So I don't really know if those numbers are true, because the game got out of hand so fast. But one of the questions I have for you guys with the Guardians is that the passing game is a disaster. I didn't think Marquise Williams looked any better than McGloin. He looked just as lost. Now, there was a lot of pressure on him too, so I'll give the Battlehawks a lot of credit there. But hey, we saw our first Luis Perez sighting. Did you guys see that?
And he threw a touchdown.
And he threw a touchdown. So I wonder if that's just enough to see him move up to the depth chart, because, guys, I don't know if McGloin is the guy at the end of the day. That bad pick. And
let's go ahead and ask, guys. I mean, people are in the chat are starting to ask.
Look at Perez.
Who are we starting, guys? If everyone is healthy and capable of playing, who are we starting next week? Are we sticking with McGloin one more week, or are we starting to look at other options?
I think they're going to start. So I'll give you what I think is going to happen, then what I would do. What I think is going to happen is they're going to start McGloin. I think that he's going to get another week. I don't see Gilbride pulling him. I think he'll get one more week. But if he has another performance like this, you've got to look at other options. Personally, I think, why not give Perez the shot? I mean, he looked decent. Granted, it was in garbage time, but he's the only life you guys have had in the last 8 quarters on offense. So if he's moving the ball, I don't care who's at quarterback, but it should be Perez personally if he's moving the ball. And look at the chat. Overwhelmingly start Perez. I know when Matt McGloin, and I would never advocate somebody cheering for when they get hurt, but when he got hurt and was taken out of the game early in the game against St. Louis, our Discord server exploded with all the New York fans like, get him out of the game. Finally, someone else is new at quarterback. So it's very clear who New York doesn't want at quarterback.
Yeah. I still think it's McGloin. I still think, at 1 and 2, it's still early enough to where you haven't been competitive the last 2 games, but you still have 1 win under your belt. You're still in it. You're certainly not out of it. McGloin went 8 for 11. Yeah, he had that pick, and yeah, he went out injured. I think if there's any, if he's probable, if he's still hopping around, if he's still banged up, I don't think you play him at all. I think you give Perez a shot. That's what I would do. Now, McGloin's fully healthy. I still think McGloin, you put him in there. I didn't think he played. The pick was bad, but other than that, I thought he was fine. But it depends on his health. If he is any whit banged up, I wouldn't play him.
Can we just do some straight talk here? They're screwed. Yeah. It doesn't matter. They're in Tampa Bay Vipers territory right now, because I don't think it matters. I am so not a Marquise Williams guy. Never thought he was anything at.
Well, he's a UNC guy, so of course.
I mean, I like Elijah Hood. He went to UNC, but not a Marquise Williams guy. And Luis Perez, and I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter about this, and they brought up a good point. Like, I was like, do you go with Williams or Perez? And he was like, I go with Williams strictly for the fact that Perez is going to get absolutely killed back there because the Guardians' offensive line has been so shaky. And if there's anyone that's more immobile than Matt McGloin, it's Luis Perez, which we've talked about a lot on this show. I wish Pastel, who's the president of the Luis Perez fan club, was here so he could give you in-depth analysis of what he thinks of Luis Perez and his skill set. His problem isn't throwing the football. His problem is going to be surviving long enough to get rid of the football.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you're in trouble. If you can't protect Luis Perez, then you're not going to succeed. And I have concerns that the Guardians' offensive line is going to be able to protect Luis Perez. So I think you're in a really bad situation.
Yeah. No, and Tampa's a good example because we said last week that we don't think the quarterback of the future or the quarterback to lead Tampa is on their roster currently, and I think the same thing with New York now at this point. You know, I was pretty high. I wasn't super high, but I had McGloin in my upper half earlier in the year at quarterback.
No, look at Kenny softening that stance a little bit.
Right. He was like fourth on my list. It's not like I had him first. But I thought he would. I'm disappointed. I thought he would play better. You know, it's weird. He played better in the NFL than he's playing in the XFL. So he's clearly taken a step backwards.
Well, I wonder if he even wants to be here, right? Like
That's a great point, Gless.
I'm questioning if he even wants to play anymore. To me, it just doesn't. The body language the past 2 weeks, it just doesn't seem like the fire's there. No. The leadership, I don't think, is there. I have a doubt whether he wants to be there. So I think Kevin Gilbride really needs to take a look in that locker room and take a good temperature and be like, does he even want to play anymore? And if he doesn't even want to play, then I wouldn't even put him in there because you risk everybody else on that offense because one guy doesn't care to be there. So that's kind of my opinion on him is I have my doubts whether he wants to play.
So let's move on. We're going to go from a team that has issues at the leadership position from quarterback to a team that has no problems with that. Landry Jones and the Dallas Renegades, they're quickly becoming a second-half team, guys. We've seen it now for the past 2 weeks since Landry Jones' return, getting off to slow starts. But in the second half, they really pick up their game and are able to execute in the red zone. They're moving the ball down the field. Landry Jones still looks pretty shaky to me in terms of feeling comfortable back in the pocket. I mean, it's going to take him a while. He hasn't played, meaningful football games in a long time. But in the second half, the Dallas Renegades have shown you what this offense is capable of. And that guy right there scoring the touchdown, Parham.
God, he's such a stud.
Yeah, I tweeted this. I tweeted this out. Are we ready to crown Parham the best tight end in the league over Truesdale now? I think you have to, just purely off of production. Maybe not talent-wise, but production-wise, there's no argument anymore. But the key here is what they're doing in the second half. They're getting the run game going. They have the best running back in the entire XFL, in my opinion, Cameron Artis-Payne. He's averaging over, 6 yards a carry? I think he's second in the league in rushing. So once you get him going, you're seeing that Dallas offense really open up. Because in the first half where they're struggling to establish the run and maybe not committing to it as much as they should, you're seeing a lot of what you saw in the first game when Philip Nelson was back there, a lot of intermediate to short routes, getting the ball out quickly because Landry Jones, his lack of mobility and just trying to get him more comfortable in the game flow, you're seeing that uncomfortableness. Is that a word? Uncomfortableness. But you're seeing him uncomfortable.
It is now, Riley.
But you're seeing him in the pocket just looking uncomfortable, trying to get rid of the ball. And once they get to the second half, whatever adjustments they're making, it's working. And getting the run game going is key to that.
I think they're just, it's the old adage, the run game, you run enough and you hold on to the time of possession enough, you're going to eventually grind the other team's defense down. And I think that's what they've been able to do in the second half. I think it's a combination of Landry getting, into the groove, getting into the game. It might take him right now the first half to kind of get back into the swing, but once he does, he's able to throw. He's throwing more accurately. He's throwing some better balls deep, and then it opens up lanes in the run game, and then the run game gets going, and the defense starts getting gassed, and they've shown that they can effectively run the ball pretty much better than most teams in the league, and they've had back-to-back weeks where they've had outstanding run games in the second half.
Yeah, I think it's an example of the first half being a lot of body punches. If you look at their stat line, you see a lot of receptions out of the backfield from Dunbar, from Cameron Artis-Payne. And then in the second half, that's really when you start to see kind of a lot of that down the field throws, a lot of those big plays that we saw. And then that's where we see a lot of that run game too. So it's really them kind of feeling the defense out there in the first half, and then they come out the second half and really kind of exploit what they're seeing and how they're adjusting. So what I would like to see out of this offense is 4 quarters. And I don't know what it's going to take. Is this the offense we're going to see all year, where Hal Mummy's just going to just throw a bunch of stuff out there in the first half to kind of set up these defenses in the second half? Or are we going to be able to see kind of a dominant performance on offense from the start to finish? I would like to think towards the end of the year, as Landry Jones starts to get his legs under him a little bit more, start to just feel the game speed again, right? Riley, you talked about it earlier. He hasn't really played meaningful football for 3 to 4 years now. So it's about him just getting those game reps. And the more game reps he gets, I think that this team will then go 3 quarters of complete football. And then right when playoff time comes, this team's going to be in the thick of it, because I think by then Landry Jones will be firing on all cylinders. The running game will be firing on all cylinders. And I think Hal Mummy and Bob Stoops truly really know what this team is. And I'd like to see just a little bit more out of the defense. I thought that they performed okay. They performed really good in the run game, really stifled Seattle in the run game. But the pass game was kind of iffy in the first half. But the second half, they were outstanding. So this team is I want to like them so much, because I love everything about their roster from top to bottom, their running game, their tight ends. I think they have a lot of talent on defense. But I want to see 4 quarters from them. And I know they're capable of doing it, and I think it's going to happen as Landry Jones starts to get more game reps. And, guys, that's going to happen right near playoff time. So this team, watch out, man.
Yeah, you got to get him healthy, number one. You got it, like you said, he's got to get more game reps, and he's got to get into football shape, because, like you said, Gless, it's been years, plural, since he's played meaningful football games. And not only that, but coming into the XFL, he got hurt the first week of training camp, so he still doesn't have that chemistry developed, just the game flow of the XFL. He hasn't developed that with his team yet. That's a work in progress during the season. And you're starting to see, as the games go on since he's been back, as the game progresses, he's clearly getting more comfortable. The offense gets more comfortable. So it's just a matter of getting all 4 quarters together, both offensively and defensively. But guys, it all stemmed from this week 2 matchup between LA and Dallas. 2 teams that are trending upwards and really making this Western Division competitive for that second spot behind the Houston Roughnecks. I don't know right now who you would be choosing between the Wildcats and the Renegades, but to me it's neck and neck. You could make a strong case for either of them, because both quarterbacks are starting to play at a high level, which is what the XFL needed.
Well, we have a big game coming up this weekend, right? I mean, we got Renegades and
Houston Roughnecks.
Let's say Houston, the Roughnecks and Renegades. I mean, hey, if Dallas can squeak one out here, I mean, we're looking at neck and neck for number 1. So it's not necessarily Houston who may be running away with this thing in the West.
Yeah. Well, in the West, arguably has. I mean, we can make an argument for Jordan Ta'amu, but they arguably have 3 of the 4 best quarterbacks in the league: Josh Johnson, Landry Jones, and PJ Walker.
Yeah. I knew Kenny would throw that in there somewhere. No mention of Cardell Jones.
Right.
But you can't really say anything after this fast performance.
Come on, you can't give me
there's absolutely no defending it. But let's go to who Dallas beat in this last game in Seattle. Now, Seattle, we've discussed a lot on this show. We kind of have like this love-hate thing going on with Seattle because they drive us crazy, and I think it all stems from their quarterback in Brandon Silvers, because it's like a hot and cold type of thing. Every time Brandon Silvers makes a good throw, he follows it up with 2 bad throws, and it drives me crazy. Like, the arm talent's clearly there. But my question to you guys is, and Gless, we'll start with you being the Seattle man of the crew. Is it Brandon Silvers that you're most concerned about, or is it the lack of weapons around Brandon Silvers, or is it maybe just a combination of both?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. And I would actually, from this past weekend, I would reverse that. I think he made 2 good throws, and then he would make one that made you scratch your head. 62% completion rating, had 2 touchdowns. Obviously, had that 1 pick in the first half. My big concern here is just the lack of weapons at the receiver position. They're getting really little production out of the tight end position in terms of the passing game. I think Keenan Reynolds is a nice receiver. I don't think he's a dominant one, certainly not a number 1 receiver. Prohl is a nice receiver, not a dominant receiver. And part of it, when I watched Seattle in the second half, I was a little bit worried at just the routes that were being run. A lot of it was short to intermediate. I didn't feel like that they were stretching the defense down the field enough. So it's kind of this dinking and dunking, and it's going to be hard to be successful if you don't have a lights out running game, and they're trying to get that running game going. They're really trying. This past weekend, it was non-existent. And so they had to put it on Silver's back. And I don't think that Zorn and the offensive staff did a great job of giving him a really good chance to succeed down the field as far as scoring with big plays. Now, you saw it a couple times in the first half. I really like that play to Kenneth Farrow that you had up. They went empty, right? And they had a matchup between Farrow and a linebacker. He knew he had it. And in the middle of the field, that's a seam route, right? In theory, he would throw it to him. He'd be off to the races. So I'd like to see Seattle open it up a lot more in the passing game. But my concerns are, and we've talked about it, do they have the talent at the receiver position and the tight end position to do that? I don't think so.
No, I agree with you, Gles. I'm very concerned about the wide receiver core as a whole. I just don't think they're one of the best in the game. And if you don't have the best wide receivers in the game, you got to be able to run the football consistently. And I think the biggest thing that maybe we haven't mentioned or I haven't talked about really is the loss of Mike Riley. Like he had to step away from the team. Zorn's been trying to keep the offense the same continuity as when Riley was there. And they even said on the broadcast that Zorn was struggling with some of the concepts and learning the concepts.
Learning the language. Really the language. Yeah. Just the terminology. The terminology is different.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's a big thing. I think that hurt the team. They haven't seemed to have adjusted the way St. Louis did with Chuck Long or what DC did with their defensive coordinator leaving. So I think that plays just as big as a factor as well, as they just cannot seem to put.
Yeah. I think LaQuinton said it in the chat, so I'm going to bring it up here. Here's what they need to do. If they're going to struggle passing the football, then they need to put Keenan Reynolds at quarterback and run the triple option with that running back core.
Hey, you know what?
Gles would get sized.
Triple option gets so sized if they did that. I mean, they have the running backs to do it. They got 3 running backs. So, I wish I had answers, but at the end of the day, you got to have dudes, and I just don't think they have dudes to stretch the field effectively, consistently. And I don't think this is a knock on Silvers. Like, I don't think a lot of this is on Silvers, and I don't want to let him off the hook, because I think he's done some really nice things. And I think he's shown you the arm talent. He's shown you just the talent in general. But man, it's really tough when you don't have dudes out there winning one-on-one matchups.
Yep.
It's tough. Like, what do you do? Where do you go with the ball if your guy's not winning?
Yeah, he's trying to force throws, make plays, and he's not that type of quarterback. He needs help around him. He's not a quarterback that's going to carry you to a victory by throwing it 40-something times a game.
Yeah, and you heard Zorn after that pick in the first half. He's like, hey, that's not on you. Your receiver didn't come back for the ball like he was supposed to. Yeah. So it's very concerning, the lack of skill, the lack of production players on offense.
Yeah, and just one more thing, just real quick before we move on. Kenny, I'm glad you brought up the Mike Riley thing. Another guy said it in the chat. I don't think that can be understated. When you're a play caller and you have to call plays using other terminology that you're not familiar with, and you may not be fully understanding of all the different concepts, That's tough, man. That's tough because you just running game. It's one thing, but if you're not familiar with some of the passing game terminology, sometimes it can be a little bit tough to call the best play that you possibly can.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to number 7, and we're going to look at the Houston Roughnecks. And right now, there may be stopping Kenny's web connection, but there's no stopping the connection of Phillip Walker and Cam Phillips. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Cam Phillips didn't even do this at Virginia Tech, but he is by far the most unstoppable player in the XFL right now with that combination of him and PJ Walker. It really is impressive. And, he's not the only weapon on that team, but he's leading the league by far in touchdowns with 7. I mean, God, 3 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. That's just like video game type of numbers.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable, to be honest with you. Guys, he's always open. Like, isn't that wild? Like, he's always open. And Sammy Coates is non-existent. A bunch of those other receivers are non-existent. And it's not because they're bad players. It's because Cam Phillips has just been so lights out, right? Like, he's always open. He's always making these spectacular catches, even when he is covered. But, I mean, he's clearly PJ Walker's guy, right? When things break down, or maybe if I don't know where to go, I'm instantly looking at 14. And there's clear chemistry there. And it's hard to build that. And it's certainly hard to build that in a league that's only been around for like a month and a half, right? So it's kind of outstanding. They didn't play college together, but there's just this natural chemistry. And guys, this isn't going away. I mean, we're going to see this the rest of the year, I would think.
No, and what's been impressive is not all of Cam Phillips' stuff has just been. I mean, there's been a couple plays where he's been open down and he's gone, but a lot of his stuff you saw in those videos were yards after catch. Like he broke some tackles, made some dudes miss, and then found the end zone. Very, very impressed with what he's done on offense. And look, Houston's offense is as good as advertised. It's high octane. It's the best offense in the XFL. And I just don't see teams being able to score with them on a consistent basis. They just put so much pressure on offense to be perfect. And Tampa hung in with them a little bit, but at the end of the day, they still gave them that death blow at the end of the game. And I just don't know. And barring a complete collapse on offense in a game, I just don't know who's going to go score for score with them. I just don't know.
Yeah, there's just so many weapons on the offensive side. It's not just Cam Phillips. I mean, Sammy Coates hasn't even gotten going. Glessner's boy going into the preseason. I don't think he's caught a touchdown pass yet. Then you got Mobley.
He hasn't. Yep.
You got Khalil Lewis. Yep. They're running backs out of the backfield.
Nick
They have Nick Holley. Butler got going in the running game. I mean, they just are – they're firing on all cylinders on offense, and they're converting touchdowns. Like, they don't kick field goals. When they get the ball in the red zone, they're scoring a touchdown. And you're going to win a lot of games when you do that. So no one's been able to stop them, and it'll be interesting. They have a big matchup this weekend versus Dallas, but that Dallas defense, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to stop them. So they haven't found their match yet. So let's go to number 8, things that we learned. Kenny is a robot. Oh, wait, that's a typo. Vipers show life. People in the chat are like, Kenny's a robot. Kenny's webcam sucks tonight. All right, so the Vipers, man, they show life after a couple abysmal performances to begin the season. Even with Cornelius and Quentin Flowers splitting time at quarterback, Aaron Murray out, they show signs of life. They may have lost the game to the Roughnecks, but they showed signs of life. They played pretty solid football most of the game. They made plays. They scored an offensive touchdown, which you'll see right here. Guys.
They scored many of them. They scored a lot of offensive touchdowns. Yeah.
What do you think about this emergence of the Vipers offense?
Well, look, it's everything we've talked about the first 2 weeks of the season. We said, look, the talent's there. They've been able to move the football in the first 2 games. They just haven't been able to execute, and they executed against the Roughnecks. They finally were able to execute some plays. Was it perfect? No, but they played extremely well. They played good football, and they played like we thought they could play up to their potential. This team is supremely talented. They just have to find a way to continue to put it together. I was encouraged by the way they played against the Roughnecks, who we all deem as the best team in the league. Now they get to play a reeling DC team, and and capitalize on maybe a team that's stumbling. So this is their opportunity. They have to win. I'm not a big fan of putting must wins early in the season, but they cannot start 0-4. They have to win,
You can't
and they're
start
playing
0-4.
No, and they're playing
a
a
10-game season. No, you can't start 0-4.
This is must win. You know what else I learned too? I will say this. I was such a hater on those uniforms before the season, and seeing them in person on TV, they look good.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
You and I were texting.
I hated to admit it. I hated to admit it because I hated them when I saw it. But, man, they look good. They do. Give you that one.
Most of the uniforms, I think, have been looking pretty solid on TV. Yeah. But in terms of the Vipers, they have weapons. We talked about this over and over. I mean, they have talent. And Truesdale didn't even play in this game. But you have Reese Horn, Dan Williams. You saw that catch in the highlights we just played. Davion Smith. Not many running backs. I didn't know he could catch the ball like that. Like, holy crap. That catch was nuts, that wheel route out of the backfield where he knew he was going to get hit and made an over-the-shoulder, like center fielder type of catch. That was impressive. So they've got weapons. They just need consistent quarterback play. And I know people in the chat are going to start telling us who should be starting at quarterback. When Aaron Murray gets back, should it be Aaron Murray? Should they have gone with Quentin Flowers more in the second half? Did Cornelius impress you? Bless, I know you were a little shocked that they got away from Flowers in the second half. I don't think he played a single snap, did he?
No, he didn't. I mean, I think he played 3 possessions in the second quarter, and then with 2 minutes left to go, they put Cornelius in, and then Cornelius played the rest of the game, and he didn't play lights out by any means. I didn't think he played great. There's got to be something there, guys. Like I don't know if Tressman and the offensive staff just does. If they don't trust Flowers, if there's not enough plays.
Well, they clearly don't trust Flowers throwing the ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, they clearly don't. I mean, they're opting for Taylor Cornelius in there. But, we talked about it a little bit, a couple minutes ago. But they were able to execute on Saturday. That's why they were still in the game, right? Yeah. They were able to execute at a high level. Listen to these stats, guys. 3rd down, they were 9 for 18. 4th down, they were 2 for 3. Red zone, they were 2 for 3. And then obviously goal to go, they were 2 for 3. So when it mattered most on big downs, they were able to make plays. And that's what we didn't see the first 2 weeks. So maybe that's why Tressman stuck in there. He felt like, hey, this is kind of the hot hand at the moment. Let's continue to ride this. I don't want to go quarterback to quarterback to quarterback to quarterback, because that's the other thing, Riley. Like, we've talked about it.
I'm so against
we don't
that.
really – yeah, I don't like switching quarterbacks every 3 series, right? You get out of rhythm. You just don't get a good rhythm. So I think he was just trying to find a quarterback that he was able to get some rhythm. That's why I was shocked that they got rid of Flowers, because when Flowers was in there, I thought they had tons of rhythm, right? That he was the one who scored their first touchdown in Vipers history. So I don't know what they do there. Oh, sorry, offensive touchdown. There we go. I don't know what Aaron Murray, was being interviewed during the game, that they anticipate him on being back. But, man, I don't know. You got 3 crapshoots. My guess is they go with Murray, but I don't know. Maybe we should do prop bets on this. Yeah, can we do that as part of our gambling picks this week? Yeah. Like, who starts at quarterback? Who gets the most reps? Let's go that way.
That's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Well, they clearly don't trust Flowers throwing the ball for whatever reason. I mean, that's obviously not his strength or his skill set as a quarterback. To put in Cornelius, who has been average at best, is that a nice way to put it?
At best.
To put him in there to be your drop back passer for the majority of the game says what Tressman thinks about Quentin Flowers' ability to consistently drop back and throw out of the pocket. So there's not much confidence there. So I'm assuming when Aaron Murray comes back, Aaron Murray's going to start.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be even a competition for it. As soon as he's healthy again, he'll be back in.
Yeah, and then the defense, they did the best they could. No one's been able to stop that Houston offense, but the defense's problem They've been consistent for the most part, but they're so susceptible to the big play.
Big plays.
And it happened again.
Big plays.
They miss assignment, especially in the secondary. They mix up their coverages, and then you'll see this every single game they've played. They mix up their coverages, and there's a wide open, like literally wide open touchdown, like not even contested. So it's just stuff like that where it's not necessarily the talent is a problem. It's the fact that they just are missing assignments. They're missing on communication, things that, you can clean up with a little bit of discipline and, just, coach these guys up and get them more game ready. But I think, I mentioned the talent there. So we got a bonus one here. And we talked about this going into last week. And I was tweeting this during I was on the Discord app. I was tweeting this during the games. We all picked the Roughnecks to win, but I was hoping for the Vipers to pull it out. And the fact that, I wasn't happy with how the game went for LA and DC, I was, blowouts, in my opinion, are never good for TV ratings and whatnot. You want them to be close, but I was hoping that these 0-2 teams would get in the win column to really bunch it together. And, one of them was able to do that in a very convincing way. So a bonus one, competitive balance is strong throughout the league, which is an extremely encouraging sign because the Houston Roughnecks have been so impressive throughout the year so far. And the Vipers, who have been so awful throughout the year, you can see that the talent is still there. They were able to hang with them and even had opportunities to win the game. They just, weren't able to pull it out in the end. And then the LA Wildcats just, holy crap, just blew the doors off the DC Defenders, who everybody thought was the best team in the league. So it just shows you that this is the XFL. Nobody really knows. It's a week-to-week thing. We have an idea based off of the very small sample size that we have, but the LA Wildcats show you that it's a small sample size. We were high on the Wildcats. We were high on both the Wildcats and the Vipers going into the season. And, for mixture of quarterback play, injuries, issues in the locker room, both teams started out slow, but the Wildcats especially showed you that, just because you start 0-2 does not mean you are a bad team by any means.
No, and Tampa's not going to be an easy out the rest of the year. Like we've talked about and like we've harped on, they have tons of talent. So, and unfortunately they're 0-3 right now, but they're not going to be an easy out the rest of the year. That's not a game you're going to circle on your calendar as, that's a win. That's a bye week for the team this week. Neither is Seattle. Seattle's defense is too good to be an easy out. They're good. Their defense is going to keep them close in games. If their offense can pick it up, they're going to win some more games. Like it's very, very competitive right now, which is fantastic because as a startup league, a high tide raises all ships. High tide, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see one team blowing out somebody every single week. And as much as I'd like to see Houston do well, and as I like that, because I love their coach, I love their offense, it was nice to see Tampa hang in there and really go toe-to-toe with them for, 3.5 out of the 4 quarters. So that was encouraging. The only thing that makes me nervous at this point is New York, that, in the way they're trending, but everybody else seems to be either treading water or trending up, which is good because it doesn't mean that there's going to be uncompetitive games every week.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing for the league, but it's also a great thing for the show. Can you imagine if it wasn't as competitive it is and we go through our power rankings and it's the same lineup every single week, right? It'd get a little boring. We talked about our power rankings already, and we'll be releasing that later this week. But there was movement there, and I anticipate on seeing movement the rest of the year, especially with Tampa Bay being as competitive as they were. Because Kenny, to your point, they're not going to be an easy out. That team is way too talented. LA. Right? If LA can play consistently like they did on Sunday, that West is going to be, it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a slugfest to watch. And if DC can get back on track, then we have an extremely competitive East as well. So, I really see six teams right now that are extremely competitive. And I'd even throw that 17th team in there, with the Vipers that can hang with anyone, and they showed that on Saturday. So, like Kenny said, I'm worried about New York. I don't know what wins are going to come on the schedule. They've got to get that offense together. But 7 of the 8 teams, I'm really confident how competitive they'll be the rest of the way. There's no quitting those teams.
Yes, Steve in the chat, he brought up a good point, which I feel like we need to bring up here, is that the Vipers, and you clearly saw a difference in the success of the offense. They handed over Trestman handed over play calling for the most part to Jamie Elizondo, the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Who called the majority of the plays throughout the game. And you obviously saw a difference in the flow and the pace of the offense, and just obviously the effectiveness in the red zone, which is just what was killing the Vipers through the first 2 weeks. Moving the ball wasn't really an issue for them. They had the most yards in the entire league week 1. They just couldn't score when they got opportunities in the red zone.
Self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, it's like, so you look at them, who just every opportunity they find a way to botch it in the red zone. And then you look at the Roughnecks, who are still they're moving the ball, and this is throughout the season. They're capitalizing and scoring touchdowns. You'll see. I mean, that's the difference. Both teams moving the ball. One capitalizes, one doesn't. One team is undefeated. One team hasn't won a game. That's the difference right there. It's not necessarily the talent; it's the execution. So there's a lot to be looking forward to in terms of the competitive balance. No team is ever out of it. We can give you power rankings all day long, and you saw it with the Wildcats and the Defenders. So with the Vipers, it's going to be interesting. With DC coming into town, that's all of a sudden turned into an extremely intriguing game based off the way that the Defenders played in their first road game.
Yeah, no kidding.
Kidding. That game opened as a pick'em. There's not even a line on that game.
Really?
It's literally a pick'em. Yeah.
Wow.
That game opened as a pick'em, so there's no line. And then how about, you want to talk about something crazy? I did not see this coming. Seattle opened up as a 12-point dog to St. Louis. 12 points. That's what Vegas.
I saw that. I don't know. I think Seattle's too. Yeah, that's a crazy large line. I don't know if I like that one.
No, that's crazy. And I think
I'm taking Seattle on that one. I'm taking Seattle. No kidding.
I think Houston was a. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up because we're going to give you're getting into picks and betting lines and things like that. We're going to be back on Thursday to do a live show at 9 p.m. where we're going to give our preview of week number 4. We're going to go over betting lines. We're going to give our picks. So make sure you mark your calendars for 9 p.m. on our YouTube channel at XFL Chalk Talk, and make sure you follow us on social media at XFL Chalk Talk, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you know when all of our content is posted, and also check out xflchalktalk.com. All of our content is there as well. Thanks to everybody who joined us this evening and to talk, about the previous week, but now we're going to turn the page and we're going to look forward to the next week. We have some big games on the schedule, so we'll see you guys Thursday to preview week 4, give our picks. Until then, I'm Riley for Gless, Kenny. This is XFL Chalk Talk. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.